The world is filled with mysteries. Some get solved, some don't. Some are real, some are not. Some can be explained, some are unexplainable. The human mind fabricates truths when it encounters the unknown, and today, I am here to delve into the unknown. Hello everybody, I'm here today to do something different. I am ranking every cryptid in the United States from worst to best. Obviously, it's not every single cryptid, otherwise the list would literally never end, but I'm basically including every popular cryptid and some that I think are interesting. I am not debating whether these cryptids are real or not. That's not what this video is for. I am giving you cool little stories about them, ranking them based on how I like them, and generally just having fun with it. Alright, let's not waste any time. Let's get into it, starting with number 50, the Phantom Kangaroo. Don't let the name fool you. The Phantom Kangaroo is not some kangaroo that has invis. No, the Phantom Kangaroo is basically just any kangaroo that has been spotted outside of Australia. Yes, that's the cryptid. Like, can kangaroos not escape from zoos or something? Like, I know seeing a kangaroo out in the wild in America is kind of weird and all, but I mean, come on, it's just a kangaroo. It's not like it's this supernatural creature that can sprout wings and fly or shapeshift. Now, there have been sightings of some phantom kangaroos that described them as giant kangaroos. There was this one sighting in 1934 that claimed a giant kangaroo killed and ate police dogs in Hamburg, Tennessee. That gives it a little bit of what I'm looking for, but I mean, that's all it's got going for it, really. So yeah, our first cryptid on the list is literally just kangaroos. Number 49, the Oklahoma octopus. Alright, so the Oklahoma octopus is basically this giant horse-sized octopus that is said to live in the freshwater man-made lakes in Oklahoma, where it attacks and kills unsuspecting swimmers. The rather large amount of deaths/drownings in the Oklahoma lakes are attributed to the octopus. So let's ignore the fact that octopi cannot live in freshwater environments for a moment and think about how this octopus even got here. Since octopi don't just spawn in like you're playing a game of Team Deathmatch in COD, someone had to have released an octopus into one of the lakes, especially since these are man-made lakes. This octopus would have to have somehow grown to the size of a horse and somehow adapted to live in a freshwater environment for this long. I'm not an octopus aficionado, but that doesn't seem plausible to me. Cryptids don't have to be perfectly and logically explainable. I mean, they are cryptids, but this one's just stupid. And it's not even funny enough to be in the goofy tier like some of the cryptids we'll see later on, so this gets a pretty low rating from me. Number 48, the Pacific Northwest tree octopus. So, the Pacific Northwest tree octopus is basically the species of octopus that has evolved to live on land in the rainforests of the Pacific Northwest. If that sounds as ridiculous to you as it does to me, then good, because it is that ridiculous. In case you can't already tell, yes, this is a confirmed fake cryptid. I'm pretty sure this is the only cryptid that I looked up where all the sources blatantly tell me that it is a fake and a hoax. Well, all sources except for one website called zapatopi.net, which is the website where this cryptid originated from. It's basically, from what I can gather, a satire website that is spreading word about the tree octopus and how it's an endangered species. It's even got these cool little photos here, like this lady wearing an octopus on her head, I guess to show that they're being hunted for fashion, or this picture here of these activists who have apparently set up outside of a sawmill. I like this better than the Oklahoma octopus since there was at least some effort put into it, but not by a large margin. Number 47, the jackalope. The jackalope is kind of a fun little goofy one. It's basically a cross between a jackrabbit and an antelope, hence the name. It's a jackrabbit with antlers. I could just stop there because that's basically all you need to know about the jackalope, but let me tell you a little origin tale about it. In Douglas, Wyoming in the 1930s, a man named Douglas Herrick, wow, Douglas is a popular name apparently, and his brother began grafting deer antlers onto jackrabbit carcasses and then taxiderming them to sell them to local businesses. Fast forward to today and there's jackalope mounts in bars, tourist stores sell jackalope merch, companies use the jackalope brand in their marketing, there's probably even a jackalope Funko Pop. Jackalope overall as a cryptid is not too interesting to me personally. Like, I love me some goofy cryptids, but jackalope doesn't really have enough of that goof factor. Like, it doesn't tickle my brain when I think about it. Number 46, the Gator Man. The Gator Man is apparently a large humanoid-shaped alligator spotted in New Jersey in 1973. There is no physical evidence of the Gator Man existing, but in 1977, a New York City conservation naturalist, Alfred Holstruck, reported that the state's southern tier was home to a scaled, man-like creature. This is the only official comment on the existence of the Gator Man. I don't really know how official a conservation naturalist is, so I think we can just call this one a bust. I'm telling you though, if this is Florida, the Gator Man would have been real. Number 45, the Slide Rock Bolter. The Slide Rock Bolter is basically this gargantuan rock fish thingy that will cling onto the side of a mountain with its hooked tail, just waiting there. And when it sees unsuspecting prey in its sights, it'll unhook its tail from the side of the mountain and start rapidly accelerating downwards, greased up like a Thanksgiving dinner. It'll have its huge maw open the entire time, swallowing whole whatever is in its way. Then, using the momentum, it will slide back up the opposite mountainside, hook its tail back, and then repeat. So, while I think the concept is pretty cool, let me tell you why I don't really like it. First of all, how would anyone not notice this giant rock fish hooked on the side of the mountain? If you look at pictures of this thing, it is huge. You would have to be an outright buffoon, a jester, to not notice this thing. Unless it has chameleon powers to perfectly blend in with the mountain, anyone could clearly see this thing and just run. So, let's assume that this thing does have chameleon powers and move on to my second gripe. In order to perform what it is performing, it is required to have two opposing mountains of suitable slope so that it can just slide between them, because I'm guessing this thing can't really move on its own. It's got to have gravity do everything for it. So it's locked to a valley, and not only that, once it's discovered, its location is known at all times. It's not just going to wander off. So if this thing is such a threat to hikers or whatever, why doesn't just the military or the FBI, the Homeland Defense, US Cryptozoology Department, whoever, just go in there and missile strike this thing? Like, come on. Yeah, I know suspension of disbelief is a big thing with some cryptids, but they've got to have some sort of logic to them so that you think, well, that makes sense. Maybe this thing really does exist. And I get nothing of that from the Slide Rock Welter. At the very least, I can say it's a little goofy. Like, a giant fish that slides down mountains to eat people is a pretty goofy concept, I guess. But it's not really going to out-goofy the real goofsters that you'll see later on, let me tell you. Number 44, the Beast of Busco. So in 1898 in Churubusco, Indiana, some guy named Oscar told everyone he saw a giant turtle in a lake on his farm. And I guess everyone ignored him because it took until literally 50 years later in 1948 for this turtle to be spotted again in the same lake. Word spread about this giant alligator snapping turtle in this lake. So what did the people of Churubusco decide to do? Well, it was time to catch that cryptid. They apparently drained the lake and motorboated it. Wait, what do you mean they motorboated it? What is that gonna do? Scare it out of the lake? Anyway, they tried to catch it and failed, and that's the end of the Beast of Busco. He was never seen again. He does have his own festival called the Turtle Days Festival, so he's got that going for him. But other than that, he's kind of a one-and-done cryptid, so. Number 43, Bat Squatch. On March 27th, 1980, Mount St. Helens would erupt and send ash and smoke all over the northwestern United States. But out of that ash and smoke, a figure would emerge, known as the Bat Squatch. Described as a cross between a bat and an ape, with leathery wings and glowing red eyes, this creature would finally show itself in 1994 when a man's car would break down while driving home. The man got out to check on his car when the Bat Squatch would land on the roof of his car and stare at him menacingly. Let me read to you the man's words when interviewed. "It was standing there, staring at me, like it was resting, like it didn't know what to think. I was scared. It raised the hair on me. I didn't feel threatened. I just felt out of place. It's looking right at me in a deep stare, like right through me. It's standing perfectly still. It stood for, how long? A few minutes, several minutes. Then its fingers twitched and its wings began to unfold. These wings were as wide as the road. It turned its head and looked back at me and started flapping its wings. A few minutes later, the truck just started, and I took off as fast as I could." Alright, I think that guy was just high off his rocks. Bat Squatch for me just kind of feels like another one of those cryptids that are basically just combinations or variations of other cryptids. Like, he's literally just if Bigfoot had bat wings and red eyes. It's like they combined Bigfoot and the Jersey Devil. So I'd say Bat Squatch is not terrible, but far from the best. Number 42, the Dover Demon. So the Dover Demon is basically this gray alien creature that was spotted a couple times in Dover, Massachusetts in 1977. It's gray, has a big head and a small body, so kind of like your stereotypical alien. Every sighting of the demon was apparently by teenagers, which I'm immediately like, this thing has lost all of its credibility of existing. You think I'm going to trust some teenagers when they say they saw some weird alien man skulking around in the woods? So yeah, Dover Demon looks pretty cool, but he's basically just a gray alien that a bunch of kids thought they saw in 1977, and that's basically it. No one's seen it ever since. Number 41, Champ. Champ, or Champy, is basically the North American version of the Loch Ness Monster, a plesiosaurus type monster spotted in a body of water. Hundreds of sightings, but no concrete evidence, and the town nearest to where it was spotted is generating revenue out of it, which is a good thing. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because, well, I mean, it's literally the Loch Ness Monster, but American, so I'll just give it some bonus points for being a revenue generator for a small town at least. Also, I'm grouping basically all plesiosaurus type monsters into this one because they're basically all the same thing. Number 40, the Flatwoods Monster. Oh boy, here we go, a West Virginia cryptid. West Virginia's got like the most cryptids per square mile in the world, I swear. Anyway, the Flatwoods Monster I feel like is one of the weaker ones. So basically, 3 boys in old Flatwoods, West Virginia saw a bright light streak across the sky and land on a nearby farm. So they went to their mom, I think, who brought herself, the 3 boys, 2 more local children, and a National Guardsman to go to the farm. So you have this mom and like 5 children and then a National Guardsman walking in a group to go find an alien. I have no idea why the mom thought, hey, let me bring along 2 more local children to help out just in case we get in trouble. That's gonna make me feel safer against this potential alien. So they get to the farm, or like a hill near the farm or something, when they see a pulsing red light. The guardsman pointed his flashlight at it and said he saw a man with a red face and a pointed hood. When the creature noticed this group of 2 adults and 5 children, it made a sound and started gliding towards them, at which point the group runs away. So the story spreads nationwide, alien enthusiasts are licking their chops, yada yada. I don't know, I find the Flatwoods Monster a little boring. Doesn't really do anything for me. It's apparently got its own museum, festivals, decorations in town, so at least some people like it. Number 39, the Snallygaster. So the story of the Snallygaster takes us to the 1730s in an area called Frederick County, Maryland, where early German settlers in the area would be terrorized by a creature called the Schnellergeist, which translates to quick ghost, which was also my nickname in high school. They described it as being a mix between a bird-like siren and a ghoul or ghost. It was half reptile, half bird with a metallic beak lined with razor-sharp teeth along with octopus-sized tentacles. So this thing's out here looking like a mind flayer from Baldur's Gate 3. You sure this thing wasn't out here eating brains as well? You're positive? The stories go on to claim that the creature would suck the blood of its victims. Alright, so not the brains, got it. Fast forward to the 20th century, in 1909, local residents would report encounters with the beast with enormous wings, a large pointed bill, claws like steel hooks, and an eye in the center of its forehead, and it made screeches like a locomotive whistle. These sightings generated quite a bit of publicity, with the Smithsonian Institution putting a bounty on it, and even President Theodore Roosevelt postponing his African safari to hunt this beast down. You know, that's the kind of president I want in the golden seat. A president that would grab his rifle, get out there, and hunt some cryptids. It was later revealed that this was all a hoax perpetrated by a news editor and a reporter in an attempt to increase readership. Well, looks like I've been bamboozled. They really had me fooled there. I was a Snallygaster believer. So the Snallygaster as a cryptid is really quite weak. There's not even a small amount of suspension of disbelief to be had because it's just straight up disbelief. It's really just a creature of folklore, if anything, a tale used to scare children. Still, I think it's a cool concept with a unique look, so a few bonus points. Number 38, the Thunderbird. On July 25th, 1977, a 10-year-old boy was out playing in the lawn when he was suddenly attacked by giant birds. The boy let out a scream which alerted the mother to rush outside to see what was happening. One of the birds picked the boy off the ground with its claws. The mother rushed towards him and started fighting the birds off. The bird that was holding the boy then dropped him and the birds fled. The mother took her son and went to the police, who brushed her off and ridiculed her. Word of this incident got around town apparently because the boy was now known as the bird boy around school, and other kids would start throwing dead pigeons onto the family's porch. Like, that is so mean, dude. Imagine if this traumatic experience actually happened and you were almost carried off by giant birds. Like, you just beat the pursuer in Dark Souls 2. And then word spreads around school about it, and you just get bullied nonstop for it. That's gotta be so rough. Man, kids in school can be absolute assholes sometimes. So, giant birds in America kind of date back to the Native Americans, where numerous tribes told of what was called a thunderbird. A bird so large that they would create thunder by flapping their wings, lightning would flash from their eyes, and rain would fall from their backs. Thunderbirds were often described as being the source of thunder and storms, and were seen as benevolent beings, protectors of sort. Now, was the incident in 1977 a thunderbird attack? Couldn't tell you. I wasn't there. No, but seriously, the most rational explanation is that the birds were just misidentified and that they were just large birds that really exist, like an eagle or something. Other more fantastical explanations say that it was a pterodactyl or an argentavis. Like, what is this, Ark Survival Evolved? Anyway, basically anytime some unidentified big bird is sighted in the US, it is said to be the thunderbird. I think the thunderbird is alright. I do like the Native American stuff about it. I think it's really cool, but as a cryptid, it's just kinda lame. I mean, if you remove the Native American stuff about it, all it really is when sightings do occur is some giant bird. I don't know. I just don't think it's as interesting as any of the other cryptids that are coming after it. Number 37, the Lizard Man of Scape or Swamp. Christopher Davis was driving home from work at 2 a.m. on June 29th, 1988. He had stopped on a road near Scape or Swamp to fix a blown out tire. While finishing up, he heard a thumping noise behind him and turned to see a creature running towards him. According to Davis, the creature attempted to grab at the car and jump on the roof as Davis tried to escape. It grabs onto Davis as he swerves the car from side to side, trying to throw the creature off. I'm assuming the creature had broken the window then, because how else would it be able to grab at him? Or maybe he accidentally broke his window and came up with his lizard man story as an excuse for his parents. He was 17, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. I think I might be getting ahead of myself. We'll see. Let's continue with the story. When he returned home, the car's side view mirror was badly damaged and there were scratch marks on the roof. No other evidence was found. So the window wasn't broken. Then the car door must have been open while Davis was getting grabbed, and that's the only other option. Alright, so this basically means what I said earlier is right. He damaged the car and had to find an excuse for his parents. I'm just imagining this kid, he somehow damaged his side mirror and he's got it into his head that this lizard man story is his best option. So he pulls over to the side of the road, he picks up a big rock, climbs up to the roof of his car and just starts scratching it. There's people driving by wondering what the hell he's doing. He's making lizard man noises to himself while he scratches the roof up. He gets off the roof finally and he's like, yeah, this'll fool him. I'm sorry, Christopher Davis, if you are somehow watching this. That joke was told in Minecraft. Alright, moving on. In the month that followed, there were further reports of this lizard man, and unusual bite and scratch marks were found on cars parked close to the swamp. It was Davis. He was going around scratching all the cars with the rock. In Minecraft. The sightings would, of course, attract tourists and hunters, both seeking this mysterious lizard man. A $1 million bounty was even placed for its capture alive. Soon enough, reports of this creature died down by the end of the summer, and that's basically the end of the lizard man of Scape or Swamp. Alright, so my theory is definitely the right one. The kid just made up this lizard man as an excuse for banging up his car. There's not even anything cool or interesting about the lizard man. All he does is chase people and scratch cars. Number 36, the Honey Island Swamp Monster. You know, I always thought this was the Honey Island Swamp Monster. Like, it's a swamp monster from Honey Island. And while that's still technically true, it's actually the Honey Island Swamp Monster, since the location is called Honey Island Swamp and it's a monster from it. Anyway, in 1963, two men, Harlan Ford and Billy Mills, were out, exploring the old Honey Island Swamp when they spotted and made contact with a creature before it escaped into the underbrush. Ford described it as nothing like I'd ever seen before, ugly and sinister, and looking like something out of a horror movie. You see, those are the good type of cryptids, something that looks straight out of a horror movie. Fast forward 11 years later, I guess they just forgot about this creature or something for 11 years. Ford and Mills returned to the area to hunt some ducks. What they found were not ducks. They found several boars with their throats ripped out. Since the boars were too far from the water to be killed by alligators, they reasoned it had to be the monster they encountered 11 years ago. Their suspicions were confirmed when they found webbed 3-toed footprints around one of the boars, and alligators don't only have 3 toes on their feet. Instead of continuing to hunt ducks, the two immediately left the area. There was this other guy, Ted Williams, who also claimed to have seen the monster multiple times and even believed there to be multiple Honey Island swamp monsters. Here are his words. "I could have killed them, but I didn't, because they didn't seem to want to harm me." One day, Ted took his fishing boat out into the swamp to set trout lines. He was never seen again. Okay. I'm sorry. A man dying is not funny. It's just the way that part was set up. He's like, "Oh yeah, those monsters in the swamp. Yeah, I love those guys. They won't hurt me. We're good friends." And then he goes out into the swamp and his ass gets immediately murdered. Okay, I'll stop. So, Honey Island swamp monster, at the end of the day, it's literally just swamp Bigfoot. So it's kind of played to be generic. I mean, it's kind of got that intrigue of the webbed feet. So it is like a reptilian Bigfoot hybrid. But even then, that's not really that interesting, at least to me. Number 35, the Grafton Monster. On June 19th, 1964, a man named Robert Cockrell was driving home from a newspaper publication where he worked when he spotted a huge white creature with seal-like skin and no head. He rushed home terrified and called 2 of his friends to accompany him to the area that he saw the monster in. When they arrived, there was no sign of the beast, but the grass was trampled where the monster once stood, and a low whistling sound could be heard wherever they searched. In the next few days, after hearing about the sightings, Cockrell decided to publish an article on the Grafton Monster, and soon enough came the hunting parties composed of teenagers. A bunch of sightings followed after the initial sighting, but no physical evidence was ever captured. I'm a fan of the described appearance of the Grafton Monster. This big white monster with no head sounds cool as hell. Unfortunately, it's a rather isolated and not very well known cryptid, so there's very few sightings and stories of it. Still, its unique appearance gets bonus points for me. Number 34, the Fouke Monster. On May 2nd, 1971, Elizabeth Ford was sleeping on the couch in her home when she was awakened by a creature reaching through a screen window. She alerted her husband and his brother, who chased the creature away with guns. An extensive search was made in the area, but the creature was not found. 3-toed footprints were found near the house, as well as scratches on the porch and damage to the window the monster reached through. The Fords said that they had heard something moving around outside a few nights prior, so whatever this creature was stalking them. Not really though, since I'm pretty sure they never saw the creature again. I just wanted to add that dramatic horror element. Anyway, there were many more sightings throughout the 1970s, with a bounty of $1,090 put on the creature's head. After the 1970s, sightings of the creature waned down until 1991, where the creature was reportedly seen jumping from a bridge. I'm sorry, I just wanted to include the jumping off the bridge part. Just imagine you're like driving down a huge bridge and you suddenly see this giant ape creature just start jumping off, like hands flailing in the air. He's like, "My people need me." Okay, I'm not saying an ape jumping off a bridge to die is funny. I'm just saying the sight of it doing so is funny. Anyway, at the end of the day, the Fouke Monster is not too much different than the Honey Island Swamp Monster. They're both just swamp Bigfoot, but I don't know. I kind of like the Fouke Monster better for some reason. Number 33, Momo. Momo, short for Missouri Monster, is an ape-like creature akin to Bigfoot that was sighted by numerous people in rural Louisiana, Missouri. There's a city called Louisiana in Missouri, I guess. Momo is described as a 7 feet tall, bipedal humanoid creature with a pumpkin-sized head and is covered with black hair that emits a terrible odor. An odor so bad that even Harley Quinn fart sniffers won't be able to handle it. Momo was first seen in 1972 by 2 boys and their sister. The kids said that the creature smelled horrible and that it was carrying a dead dog. In the following weeks, numerous reports of the creature sprang from up and down the Missouri River. One such sighting was from a man named Richard Allen Murray, who was driving along a creek in town when he saw something moving in the woods. When his headlights revealed the creature, it fled into the woods. Murray later stated, "I was amazed to see something. I thought it was a bunch of nonsense, but then I saw something." You know what I think is nonsense? That statement he made. What kind of hubaloo statement is that? You might as well have just said nothing, because that would have accomplished more than what you just said. Anyway, the media picked the story up. A 20-person hunting party went to hunt the beast down but found nothing. Tracks were found and submitted to the director of the Oklahoma City Zoo, who deemed the tracks belonged to an unknown species of primate. After the slew of sightings, the reports of this Momo creature died down and Momo was never seen again. Alright, so the concept for this cryptid is okay at best. Super hairy Bigfoot variant that smells bad and eats dogs, but that's literally it. When it encountered that guy that made that nothing burger statement and his encounter, all it did was run away from him. It didn't even jump in his car and break his windshield or something. Average cryptid at best. Number 32, the Northfield Pigman. The Northfield Pigman, also known as the Vermont Pigman, also known as Sam Harris, is a humanoid creature with pig-like features that has been spotted in Northfield, Vermont multiple times. Let's take a look at the Northfield Pigman origin story. On October 30th, 1951, 17-year-old Sam Harris was getting ready for what is known as Picket Night, where teens would pull mischievous pranks before Halloween. Sam would set off into the night with a basket full of eggs so that he could egg houses. The only one that would be egged would be himself, because he was never seen again. Yes, that joke did in fact make no sense. Sam would never return. Sam's disappearance sparked fear into the locals, as well as a search for answers. The locals eventually came to the conclusion that Sam had made a deal with the devil, which caused him to transform into some sort of monster. He would slaughter pigs, eat the entrails raw, hollow out their heads, and wear it as some sort of grotesque mask. The first sighting of the Northfield Pigman was 20 years later, in 1971. One night during a high school dance, a group of students snuck out to drink when out of the shadows emerged a naked man covered in white hair, but where there would be a human head, there was a pig's head instead. It was the Northfield Pigman. In the following days, a farmer would claim to see the same creature rummaging through his garbage bins at night. Another local would claim to hear inhuman squeals coming from behind her property. The Pigman would quickly become a popular local legend in Northfield and would attract a fair amount of attention into the town from monster hunters and cryptid enthusiasts. There would be some commercialization in the town as a result as well. The Northfield Pigman, I feel, is kind of a cut and dry cryptid. A very simple concept, has some intrigue to it, has the horror elements, but I think fails to be something really special. There's just not enough about him that is really interesting to me, so that's why I put him here. Number 31, the Pascagoula Elephant Men. On the evening of October 11th, 1973, two men, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, were fishing off the bank of the Pascagoula River in Mississippi when they heard a whizzing sound and saw flashes of blue lights. They looked up and saw an oval-shaped object in the air. Three creatures hovered out of the object. They were described as 6 feet tall robotic humanoids with gray, elephant-like skin, bullet-shaped heads, slit-shaped mouths, and crab-like pincers. The men said that they were completely paralyzed but still conscious as the creatures took them aboard their aircraft. Aboard, they were subjected to a medical examination and then returned to shore. The aircraft would then leave shortly after. The two men would report their experience and then media would catch on and the story started to spread, yada yada. That's about it though, there's not really much more to the story. It's pretty much just your typical alien story. It's really up to you if you choose to believe it or not. What I like about this story and what I think sets it apart is the description of these creatures. They're not your typical gray goobers that are usually depicted. These things look straight out of a horror game, so I'm giving bonus points for that. Number 30, the Mantis Man. The Mantis Man is either a 7-foot tall bug-like creature or a mantis-like humanoid creature that has been reported in Hackettstown, New Jersey, near the Musconetcong River. Who comes up with these names? Anyway, in 2002, there were apparently 2 sightings of this weird humanoid mantis creature. Apparently, this creature can turn on active camouflage from Halo or something, because every report says that it seemed transparent and that it was appearing and disappearing. The TV show Mysteries and Monsters of America featured the Mantis Man, but apparently they spun the story of the Mantis Man being a literal giant mantis instead of a humanoid creature, according to one of the witnesses, Paul Jacks. I'm on the side of the Mantis Man being a humanoid creature with active camo. Otherwise, why is he called the Mantis Man if he's not part man? I'm a humanoid Mantis Man truther. Other than these sightings though, there's not much else about the Mantis Man. Some people say that it was an experiment gone wrong, some people think that it's an alien. At the end of the day, it's a mantis, and it's a man, and it's got active camouflage. And I think that's pretty cool. Number 29, the Hopkinsville Goblins. The Hopkinsville Goblins, aka the Kelly Hopkinsville Encounter, aka the Kelly Greenman case, is a claimed close encounter Case. Okay, I give up. The Hopkinsville Goblins is a claimed close encounter case with extraterrestrial beings. On August 21st, 1955, in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, a group of 5 adults and 7 children reported to the Hopkinsville police station that small alien creatures from a spaceship were attacking their farmhouse and that they were hoarding them off with gunfire for nearly 4 hours. 2 of the adults claimed that they were shooting at small figures repeatedly popping up in doorways and windows. I like to imagine that everyone in this situation is just high off the rocks, right? And then the adults were just hunkering down, blasting at these goblins like they're in the trenches of World War II, but on the outside they're just like crazy people shooting at ghosts. Anyway, the police, thinking this was a possible shootout between citizens, sent 4 city police officers, 5 state troopers, 3 deputy sheriffs, and 4 military police officers to the farmhouse where this event supposedly took place. The search yielded nothing other than evidence of gunfire and bullet holes. So I was right, they were high off their rocks and shooting at ghosts. Because you would think after shooting at these goblins for 4 hours, at least one shot would have hit, right? And there would be goblin blood or something, but instead, nothing. The next day, the neighbors told the police that the family had packed up and left after claiming the goblins had returned at 3:30 a.m., the witching hour. So these goblins were described as being about 2 feet tall. They were gray colored and had pointy ears and glowing yellow eyes. The popular theory is that the family were actually shooting a bunch of great horned owls. As you can see here, the 2 entities share striking similarities. I think they were high off their rocks, huffing galaxy gas or something, and they were shooting at ghosts. That's my theory, and that's the only correct one. Number 28, Rougarou. The Rougarou is a werewolf-like creature that stalks the swamps of Louisiana. The thing that differentiates the Rougarou from your typical werewolf, however, is that it can shapeshift at will, not just during a full moon. The Rougarou is actually part of Cajun folklore and has been used as a tale to teach children to behave. There's also a Catholic version of the Rougarou, where it is said that the Rougarou will stalk and kill any Catholics that do not obey the rules of Lent, which I find pretty hilarious. There's a legend that says the Rougarou is under its curse for 101 days, and after that the curse will transfer to the last person that the Rougarou has drawn blood from. The original Rougarou will now return to human form, while the curse is passed on to the next person. The Rougarou is more of a folklore creature than a cryptid, but there have been sightings and such that attribute it to being a cryptid, so I included it. Overall though, it's really just a dog man in a swamp. I'll give it bonus points for the kinda cool folklore, I guess. Number 27, the Squonk. The Squonk is a creature that is said to live in the hemlock forests of Pennsylvania. The earliest mention of the Squonk is from a book by William T. Cox called Fearsome Creatures of the Lumber Woods. Let me read you the description of the Squonk from the book. The Squonk is of a very retiring disposition, generally traveling about at twilight and dusk. Because of its misfitting skin, which is covered with warts and moles, it is always unhappy. Hunters who are good at tracking are able to follow a squonk by its tear-stained trail, for the animal weeps constantly. When cornered, an escape seems impossible, or when surprised and frightened, it may even dissolve itself into tears. So the squonk is basically this goofy little ugly creature that is so upset about its appearance that it will cry itself into a puddle of tears whenever someone sees it. You know what? I kind of feel bad for this thing. But yeah, that's basically it. That's all you really need to know. I kind of like the Squonk, just because it's so different from almost every other cryptid on this list. It's not big, it's not scary, it's not powerful, it's just ugly, I guess. It adds a little bit of variety to the American cryptid bestiary, which is full of Bigfoot and Loch Ness monster clones. Number 26, Pale Crawlers. Pale crawlers are these thin, pale humanoid creatures with elongated limbs that have been spotted all around the world in forests, abandoned areas, and even urban areas. Pale crawlers started to get popular around the 2000s, where numerous internet horror stories, images, even videos would pop up about these creatures. Though their appearance might invoke fear, from many sightings they seem to be skittish around humans and will rarely attack or provoke a human. Usually in sighting videos, they're seen for a brief moment peeking around a corner and then disappearing. There's honestly not too much to say about the paracrawlers. For one, I think they look pretty scary, definitely nailed the horror element, but that's really the only thing they have going for them. They apparently inspired an internet creepypasta called The Rake, which I think is cool. I love a good creepypasta, but yeah, middle of the pack cryptid for me, I think. Number 25, the Chupacabra. The chupacabra is a vampiric creature that has been reported to kill and exsanguinate livestock in the southwestern US, Mexico, and Puerto Rico. Its name, chupacabra, is Spanish for goat sucker. The chupacabra was first sighted in 1995 in Puerto Rico, where a group of sheep were found dead and completely drained of blood. In another city in Puerto Rico, citizens claim to have seen the chupacabra swooping down from the sky, so apparently it can fly now. The chupacabra also apparently broke through a window of a child's bedroom, tore apart a stuffed teddy bear, and left a puddle of slime and a piece of rotting meat on the windowsill. The creature would eventually be spotted not just in Puerto Rico, but across the southwestern US and Mexico as well, and descriptions of this creature vary wildly. Some say that it is a dog-like creature, some say it is reptilian, some say that it can fly, some people even say it's an alien. The most popular explanation, at least for the dog version of it, is that it's some sort of dog-coyote hybrid with mange, but we can never know for sure. I'm a fan of the chupacabra. It's a classic, but also has that intrigue of the wildly conflicting reports of its appearance. It also spawned this amazing quote from Fallout New Vegas.
Well, says No Bark, we got a chupacabra with an automatic weapon.
So, it gets a bonus from me. Number 24, the Popelic Monster. The Popelic Monster is a half-goat, half-man creature that is reported to live beneath the railroad trestle bridge on Popelic Creek in Louisville, Kentucky. There are numerous ways that the creature is said to claim its victims. Some say that it uses hypnosis or voice mimicry to lure people into an oncoming train. Some say that the creature jumps down from the bridge onto the roof of cars passing by underneath it. Some say that it attacks its victims with a blood-stained axe. And while these methods may be what people will say the creature uses to kill, there is one more method. One that is very real. Legend. Word spreads wide about creatures like this, which results in curiosity. And curiosity is an insidious killer. There have been numerous deaths around the trestle bridge of people searching for the beast, only to get hit by a train or to slip off and fall off the bridge. So, next time you're exploring a trestle bridge looking for a goat man, be careful where you step, because it might just be your last. Number 23, the Yucca Man. The Yucca Man is Desert Bigfoot. Alright, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. No, I'm just kidding. Although that is basically what the Yucca Man is. A large, hairy, Bigfoot-like creature that has been primarily spotted in the western and southwestern US. Let's start with this famous image. This image was taken at the Hidden Valley campgrounds. You can see the hairy figure standing in the middle of the road there looking like something out of Courage the Cowardly Dog. Now, let me tell you about a few sightings. In 1971, in the 29 Palms Marine Base in California, a Marine was found unconscious after a shift with his rifle bit in half. When questioned, the Marine said that a huge hairy man had come out of the dark and approached him. He raised his rifle and ordered the hairy man to stop. The hairy man then knocked him unconscious, and then I assume bent his rifle in half. Which, I mean, I've never tried it myself, but it seems to me that you would need to be very strong to bend a rifle in half. Maybe as strong as a large, hairy ape man. The creature was also stated to have red eyes and a terrible smell. The Yucca Man was also apparently causing trouble at the Edwards Air Force Base in California, and he brought his buddies along with him as well. You see, the Air Force Base had a series of underground tunnels, and they had cameras that would monitor these tunnels. So apparently one night, this group of Yucca Men was caught on camera running through these tunnels. They would send men down there to check it out, but the Yucca Men would just disappear like some sort of magic trick. There was also apparently this airman on base that would spot a pair of blue eyes in the dark staring at him and moving weirdly through the darkness before disappearing. He still talks about that encounter to this day. The Yucca Man was also spotted in Palmdale, California in 1973. According to eyewitness reports, the creature likes to run around houses and leave footprints. That is its MO in the East Lancaster area, where footprints were found around several houses recently. One woman reported that the creature ran around her house and scratched at the door. A small boy sent to tell his father supper was ready was found hours later, crying near the corral. When asked what happened to him, he answered that a big furry man would not let him pass. Wait, so you're telling me this Yucca Man bullied this kid until he started crying? Suddenly the Yucca Man is looking like a really top tier cryptid to me. But yeah, that's about it for the Yucca Man. He really is just southwestern Bigfoot. Oh, and I actually am ranking him higher because he made that kid cry. I think that's hilarious. Number 22, Indrid Cold. Another West Virginia cryptid, and a good one at that, if you can even call him a cryptid. I do, which is why he's on this list. In 1966, a man named Woodrow Derenberger was driving down a West Virginia road
when he saw some bright lights ahead of him. He stopped the car and saw that the lights were coming from some weird aircraft that had landed in front of his car. He said that it looked like a kerosene lamp chimney, whatever the hell that means. Out of this aircraft would walk a man. Darren Berger would describe the man as tall and having a deep suntan. His hair was dark and combed back, and he had normal features. His demeanor, however, was far from normal. He had a large grin on his face that never disappeared. He started to speak telepathically to Darren Berger, asking him why is he frightened and that we mean you no harm. The strange man told Darren Berger that his name was Indrid Cold. After this encounter, Darren Berger reported this to the police, and soon the media went into a craze to find out more about who this Indrid Cold character is. Darren Berger claimed that he was visited often by Indrid Cold over the next month, which spawned massive attention from local media. His household would get non-stop calls, and people would line up outside of his driveway to catch a glimpse of Indrid Cold. Darren Berger began to get ridiculed to such an extent that he had to seek medical treatment. Eventually, he spiraled into depression and his life was ruined, all because he decided to come out about his encounter. What I'm wondering is, if Indrid Cold comes to visit you so often, how did nobody else catch, cold hard evidence? No pun intended. Like, you camp outside of his home 24/7 and still nothing? I don't know, man. I feel bad for the guy, that Darren Berger.
Number 21, not deer.
Not deer are creatures that are said to inhabit the Appalachian Mountains. The creatures look like normal deer at first glance, but upon closer inspection, you can tell something is off about its anatomy or its behavior. Not deer are described as having unusual or erratic movements, as if they were double jointed or had additional joints in their limbs. Also, unlike normal deer, they have forward-facing eyes instead of eyes on the side of their heads, akin to a predator. Not deer are not afraid of humans and will often follow them. Those that encounter them have described an uneasy feeling that there is some sort of intelligence or sentience behind the not deer. Despite not being afraid of humans, a not deer will usually only attack a human if it is provoked. They may also stand up and walk on their hind legs, which I think is one of the creepiest things a wild animal can do. But yeah, that's about it for the not deer. I think they're a pretty cool cryptid despite there not being much info on them. They definitely creep me out quite a bit, which is surprisingly unusual for cryptids.
Number 20, the Ozark Howler.
It is said that there is a monstrous beast roaming the Ozark Mountains, with eyes glowing red, fur black as night, and a howl that can make any man's blood run cold. The cry is said to sound like a cross between a human's scream, an elk's bugle, and a hyena's laugh. This is the Ozark Howler. The earliest tale of the creature was in the 1800s, where a man named Daniel Boone would claim to have not only encountered, but killed the Ozark Howler, and to this day, there have been reports of this black beast in the Ozarks and its unnatural, bone-chilling howls. It is not certain whether the Ozark Howler is real or not. Many say that it is a misidentified animal, and its howl could be the cry of a red wolf, an elk, a fox, or a mountain lion. Others say that it is a tale brought over from English folklore, namely the legend of the Black Dog of Death, also known as the Black Shuck. It is said that the Black Shuck is an omen of death, and that whoever sees it will soon meet their doom. I think the Ozark Howler as a concept is really cool. It's got a really good name, it's got the fear factor to it, it looks really cool as well. I just wish there was more to it. Like, I couldn't find any substantial encounters with it, which is really disappointing. Speaking of encounters though, apparently the Ozark Howler was encountered as recently as 2015, and the person claimed to have taken a picture of it. I was able to find it, and here, let me show it to you. Dude, that is the most ridiculous thing I have seen all day. That is so clearly fake, like a 12-year-old in computer science class could make a Photoshop like that.
Number 19, the Hodag.
So, the Hodag goes all the way back over 125 years ago to 1898 in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. It was described by newspapers at the time as having the head of a frog, the grinning face of a giant elephant, thick short legs set off by huge claws, the back of a dinosaur, and a long tail with spears at the end. The reports were instigated by a well-known Wisconsin land surveyor, timber cruiser, and prankster, Eugene Shepard. I like how it's like two official job titles at first, and it's just prankster after that. Like he introduces himself. Hello, my name is Eugene Shepard, land surveyor, timber cruiser, and a prankster at your service. So this Eugene guy rounded up a bunch of locals and captured the animal and killed it with dynamite. Wait, what? They killed it with dynamite? Why would you go through the trouble of capturing it if you were just gonna kill it with dynamite? Anyway, they blew it up with dynamite and took a photo of its charred remains and released it to the media, who said it was the fiercest, strangest, most frightening monster to ever set razor-sharp claws on the earth. It became extinct after its main food source, all white bulldogs, became scarce in the area. I'm sorry, you can't make this shit up. So you mean to tell me this thing only eats all white bulldogs, nothing else, even if its life depends on it? Also, it went extinct because you blew it up with dynamite, not because it ran out of all white bulldogs. The Hodag has become the official symbol of Rhinelander, Wisconsin. It is the mascot of the Rhinelander High School. Businesses in town are named after it, and it has its own music festival. So it's kind of got its own little Point Pleasant Mothman gig going on, where it's helping out an entire town's economy. And we love cryptids like that, so Hodag gets a little bit of bonus points from me.
Number 18, the Shunkaworkin.
In 1886, in Madison Valley in Montana, a settler named Israel Ammon Hutchins was having some trouble with the wildlife. You see, he owned a farm, and something had been killing his animals. Something dark, primal, sinister, and lurking in the dark. One day, he awoke to some commotion and saw this canid creature chasing one of his animals. He got his gun and shot at it, but missed. This happened again, however, and Hutchins found a perception bobblehead from Fallout and hit the creature this time, killing it. Hutchins then sold the carcass to a trader named Joseph Sherwood, who was also a taxidermist. Sherwood owned a store/museum in Henry Lake, Idaho, and taxidermied the creature and put it on display in the store. He would call the creature the Ringdocus for some reason. The creature would remain on display until the 1980s, where it mysteriously disappeared. I guess the creature's ghost had enough and was like, alright, you're done, I'm taking my body back. The only surviving evidence of this Ringdocus we have is a black and white photo taken by Ross Hutchins. And yes, that is the Ross Hutchins, grandson of the renowned cryptid hunter Israel Ammon Hutchins. In the photo, the creature looked like a wolf, but there were some features that were off about it. Its back was arched down at the rear and its face was a little weirdly shaped. A member of the Native American Iowa tribe named Lance Foster said that the beast could be the Shunkaworkin, a beast from the Native American lore that would sneak into their camps at night and steal their dogs. The name Shunkaworkin actually translates to carries off dogs. The creature's taxidermy body was recently discovered by another one of Israel Hutchins' grandsons at the Idaho Museum of Natural History. He apparently convinced the museum to loan the display to the Madison Valley History Museum in Ennis, Montana, where I believe it is located to this day. Some say this beast really was the Shunkaworkin of the Native American folklore. Some say it's a prehistoric creature. Some say it's just a weird wolf-dog hybrid. Whatever it is, though, it's, dead? I don't know where I was going with that. The Shunkaworkin, I think, is a pretty cool cryptid, considering its corpse is supposedly in a real museum to this day. That's like the only cryptid on this list that you can say that about.
Number 17, the skunk ape.
Time to head over to Florida. This one's the Florida man. I mean, the skunk ape. To describe it in the simplest way possible, it's stinky Florida Bigfoot. But that wouldn't be doing the skunk ape justice. There's more to the skunk ape than just being a smelly monkey. Let's go back all the way to 1818, in what is now known as Apalachicola. That sounds like a drink that would be in Fallout 76. In Apalachicola, Florida, local newspapers were giving reports of a man-sized monkey that was raiding food stores and stalking fishermen. The next sighting was in 1929. Wow, he went MIA for over 100 years, huh? Did he have a booty call or something? There's a female Bigfoot all the way across the country. You better be quick or else Bigfoot himself will get to her before you. So the skunk ape just starts sprinting across the entire US and then back after 100 years. In 1929, the skunk ape was apparently spotted and attracted to a recently constructed bat tower. If you're wondering what a bat tower is, don't worry, so did I. It's apparently a tower built to house bats for the purpose of handling an insect population, in this case, mosquitoes. The skunk ape apparently wasn't a fan of this tower, however, so he came by and drove all the bats away. In 1942, a man reported an ape-like creature rushing out of the brush line and jumping onto his vehicle to bang on the door for half a mile before leaving. Skunk ape sightings were really common throughout the 1950s to 1970s apparently. That was the skunk ape golden age, the skunk ape boom period, the holy skunk ape empire. In the 1970s, 2 sheriff's deputies reported an ape-like creature stalking them through a grove before they shot at it with their firearms.
Throughout 1971 to 1975, a slew of sightings was recorded of a 5-foot-tall ape-like creature with dark red to black fur in the Broward County area. These sightings were heavily covered by the media in Florida, and I believe this is where the term skunk ape was coined. The skunk ape was reported to have invaded homes, stalked people, and killed livestock. Sounds like the average Florida resident, I'm gonna be honest. The local police department investigated after one law enforcement officer reported striking the skunk ape with a car. Posses were formed in an effort to locate the creature, but no body or evidence was found. Wait, so no evidence was found? The officer's vehicle was not found to be damaged after hitting a 5 to 7 foot tall ape with it? I find that very hard to believe. Also, let's say you're the officer in this situation. The skunk ape has been terrorizing the area for years. You somehow get into the situation where you hit the skunk ape with your car. It would depend on how fast you were going, but if you hit him hard enough to knock him down onto the pavement, he's probably not getting up for a little bit, unless he drinks like an Estus flask from Dark Souls or something. Would you not just shoot this thing in the head while it's on the ground and just end its reign of terror? Like, if this event really did occur, then what happened? Did you just hit the skunk ape, he falls onto the floor, and then he just slowly gets up? You both apologize to each other and then just go your separate ways? Like, what? Sorry for the tangent, it's just some of these stories, the people are like NPCs, man. Anyway, sightings continue to this day in Florida, and the skunk ape, of course, is being monetized. He even has his own headquarters. Look, I've not seen any other cryptids with their very own headquarters. Checkmate, Bigfoot. Actually, Bigfoot might have his own headquarters. I actually have no clue. But yeah, skunk ape's a pretty cool guy. Going around Florida, stinking it up, invading a few homes, maybe slaughtering a couple cows. I think he's interesting, or at the very least entertaining enough to get him a spot like this on the list. Number 16, the Beast of Bray Road. You're driving down the old Bray Road, back home to your farm. It's a dark winter night, but you can't shake the feeling that this night is somehow darker than usual. It must be cloudy, you think to yourself. As the headlights of your car illuminate the taunting shapes of the tree line, you thought you spotted something out of the corner of your eye. Something gray, furry, and moving really fast through the trees. Being extremely stupid, you decide to get out of your car to check it out. You headed a little into the bushes when you hear a loud scraping sound coming back from the direction of your car. You hurry back, only to find it, standing there, in the middle of the road, illuminated by your car's headlights. The Beast of Bray Road. And he's scratched up your car and dashed away into the trees. The Beast of Bray Road is basically this werewolf creature that has been sighted around Bray Road and the surrounding areas in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. In 1989, a woman was driving down Bray Road at 1:30 a.m. when she saw a figure on the side of the road. The figure was facing away from her and she could see pointed ears on its head. She was eventually able to see the front of the figure as she kept driving. The figure had dark brown and grayish fur and was kneeling, holding a piece of meat in its claws. The woman estimated the creature to be 5'7" and around 150 pounds, which I have no idea how you would be able to make such a conclusion when all you could see is a brief little glimpse of the creature with your headlights, but alright. In 1990, a girl was sledding with her friends when she saw a large dog-like creature. It had silver fur with brown patches and its face was coyote-shaped. The creature turned and looked at the group, who then started to slowly back away and run. The creature then started to chase the kids, who made it about halfway home before the creature just gave up and ran into a cornfield. Okay, so there is no dimension, no multiverse that exists where a bunch of kids can outrun something like a werewolf. Just saying. In 1991, a woman was driving down the road when she felt her car hit something. She stopped the vehicle and got out to investigate, but it was not long before she saw a large, hairy beast charging straight at her. She ran as fast as she could back into the car and drove out of there. Upon inspection after the event, the woman apparently found scratch marks on the back of the trunk. And in 1992, a man and his friend were driving down the road when the car hit something. The driver stopped the car to see what it was when he saw a big, hairy creature walking and reaching out to them. I'm assuming that they drove off, but apparently not before the creature had scratched the side of the car. So, like, did you just let this creature casually walk up to your car and scratch it before driving off or something? Like, you didn't say the creature was running towards the car, you said it was walking. Like, I'm imagining it shambling like a zombie towards the car. I don't know, there's a lot of stuff in these stories that don't add up. But yeah, that's all I wanted to go over for the Beast of Bray Road. I think that it's a pretty cool cryptid, despite some sightings being really weak in the logic department. It's also the most well-known dogman cryptid in the US. Kind of ironic considering it's named after some random-ass country road in Wisconsin. Number 15, the Lone Pine Mountain Devil.
The Lone Pine Mountain Devil is basically this raptor-like creature that has been reportedly seen around the southwestern United States and northwestern Mexico. Around the mid-19th century, early settlers of the American Southwest began spreading tales of this creature when animals were found brutally slaughtered in the desert and mountains in the area. Then, soon enough, people were found viciously murdered, left unrecognizable. The most well-known encounter with the Lone Pine Mountain Devil, I'm going to call it the LPMD from now on, was in 1878 when a stagecoach of Spanish settlers vanished in Southern California. 2 months later, their bodies were found by copper miners. Wait, how do we know it was the LPMD that did that? Did he leave his insignia on the bodies or something? So weeks had passed since the stagecoach was supposed to arrive at a mission when a lone priest approached the mission. The priest was hungry, thirsty, and weak, like he just started a survival game. He had no horse, no supplies, just the clothes on his back and a journal. The journal was apparently related to the disappearance of the stagecoach. In the journal, he describes that the settlers, weary from their journey across the continent, took a celebration to honor Saint Roderick. This celebration escalated into a riotous orgy. The priest then goes on to say he took refuge in a small tent on the outside of the convoy and watched as winged demons swarmed the settlers. The final entry on his journal read, my God, they are all gone. The winged demons have risen. What sin have they committed against each other and thy sacred earth? May the forgiving Lord not abandon their souls, which were taken from them into the depths of hell. And through the earthly fires of man, a soul tree remained on the mountain's peak, and the devils that spared me returned to the refuge of the lone pine on the mountain. So he writes a bunch of jargon to basically claim that the settlers were having a huge orgy, and these devils came to punish them for it. Shouldn't it be the other way around? Wouldn't these hellish creatures want you to have a huge orgy? I don't know, I don't understand priests. After the 20th century, sightings of the LPMD have significantly decreased, many attributing it to the massive population influx in the Southern California region at the time. It took until the 21st century for the LPMD to finally make its return. There were a large influx of sightings around 2003 to 2010, and to this day, apparently, local authorities are still investigating the disappearance of a group of high school students that went missing in the Death Valley region since 2010. Dude, it's the Death Valley region. There could have been a million reasons why they went missing there. There was also this documentary made about the LPMD by the YouTube channel Crash Course Cryptozoology in 2021 that apparently proved the LPMD as an internet hoax. But like I said, I'm not here to argue that. I'm here to rank cryptids. I think the LPMD is a pretty cool one. It's got a pretty unique appearance. It's not your generic Bigfoot clone. It is extremely brutal in its attacks. It leaves you unrecognizable, so that's kind of cool. It apparently only attacks things that disrupt its natural habitat, so it's like a guardian of nature type thing. Overall, really cool cryptid.
Number 14, the Van Meter Visitor.
In October of 1903, numerous people in the town of Van Meter in Iowa reported sightings of a weird flying bat-like creature. It flew extremely fast, had a terrible stench, and could shoot a blinding light from its forehead. Across multiple nights, this creature would be spotted and shot at to minimal effect. Eventually, a posse was formed to get ready for this boss fight, and they pursued the creature to an abandoned coal mine nearby. When they got there, they found out that this was going to be a duo boss fight, as there was not one, but two of the creatures. The creatures decided it was not worth it though, I guess, since they both turned away and disappeared into the mine as the men began to shoot at them, never to be seen again. So what I'm wondering is, could the creatures still be down there in the mines? Has anyone ever been down there since? I mean, come on, you gotta finish the boss fight. Imagine if it was like the game Until Dawn, but instead of Wendigos, it was Van Meter Visitors. They have a whole breeding grounds in those mines. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. The Van Meter Visitor, while being quite the isolated incident, is still pretty cool, all things considered. I love the unique look of it, especially the little laser light beam thingy on the forehead. I think that's a really cool aspect. Pretty cool cryptid.
Number 13, the Infield Horror.
At about 10 p.m. on April 25th, 1973, a man named Henry McDaniel said that he heard scratching at his door. Thinking it was a bear, he got his rifle and a flashlight and headed outside. When he stepped out the door, he saw a creature standing between two rose bushes. He said it had 3 legs, a short body, 2 short arms, and glowing pink eyes. It was 4.5 feet tall and was gray colored. He proceeds to shoot 4 shots at it, lands 1, which makes the creature hiss like a wildcat, quote unquote, before fleeing, covering 50 feet in 3 jumps. Yeah, this sounds like a kangaroo, my dog. Imagine you're a kangaroo that just escaped from a zoo, and then you wander up to a strange house out in the middle of nowhere and scratch on the door, you know, because you're a kangaroo, I guess. And then this man just comes out and immediately starts shooting at you. That poor kangaroo. Anyway, the same guy claimed to have seen it again on some railroad tracks 2 weeks later, which sparked a search party to go to the railroad to look for it. And then later on, a hunting party with rifles and shotguns came down to hunt this thing, but they got arrested instead. There was even this 10-year-old kid who was Henry McDaniel's neighbor who said that he encountered the creature before McDaniel did, and that the creature stepped on his feet and ripped his shoes to shreds. When questioned later, the kid said that he was basically trolling McDaniel, which I think is hilarious. But yeah, that's about it. That was basically the only time the infield horror was encountered. I thought the story itself was pretty funny, so that'll net it some bonus points, I guess.
Number 12, the melon heads.
Melon heads are small humanoid creatures with bulbous heads that will occasionally emerge from their hiding places to attack people. There are 3 states that they were spotted in: Michigan, Ohio, and Connecticut, each with their own melon head legends. Let's start with Michigan. The melon heads of Michigan are said to reside around Felt Mansion or in the southern forested areas of Ottawa County. Supposedly, the melon heads were originally children with hydrocephalus, which basically means you have an excess of cerebrospinal fluid in the brain, which can cause a whole slew of problems. These children were living in an insane asylum near the Felt Mansion, and the story goes after enduring physical and emotional abuse, the children went feral and escaped into the forest. From there, the legend of the Michigan Melonheads began. Some legends say that the asylum never existed, and that the children had lived in the mansion itself, and that they eventually devised a plan to escape and kill the doctor that had abused them. There are even reports from people who have broken into the mansion of ghosts of the children and the doctor. Moving on to Ohio, the legend begins in the city of Kirtland in Lake County, Ohio. There was a man named Dr. Crow who was taking care of a bunch of orphans. Crow was said to have performed experiments on these children who developed large, hairless heads. The children eventually managed to kill Crow, burned the orphanage, and retreated to the surrounding forest and supposedly feed on babies. Wait, what? Feed on baby? Wait, where are you finding random babies out in the forest? Were they just kidnapping random babies in the city? Alright, disregarding that, the melon heads of Ohio were popularized on websites like Creepy Cleveland and Dead Ohio. What are these 2007 ass website names? Are these real websites? Alright, I looked them up. Creepy Cleveland is a real website, as you can see right here. I could not find Dead Ohio, however. If any of you have visited the Dead Ohio website, let me know how the experience was like. Did you find any melon heads on there? And now on to the melon heads of Connecticut. One of the legends comes from an insane asylum located in Fairfield County, which burned down in 1960, causing the death of all staff and most of the patients, with 10 to 20 of them unaccounted for. They supposedly survived and escaped into the woods, where they would resort to cannibalism to survive and to inbreeding, which would eventually develop hydrocephalus. There's also this mysterious and legendary road called Dracula Drive, which is basically any rural road in Connecticut that is suspected to be Melonhead territory. There are no roads that are designated as Dracula Drive, so you gotta have the critical information to know which road is Dracula Drive, or else the Melonheads are gonna get you. They're gonna eat you. I really like the Melonheads as a cryptid. The idea of these insane asylum patients who have escaped into the forest and have mutated into these freakish bulbous-headed monsters that now attack people that enter their territory and eat them, that's a fun concept. The only thing I'm really wanting for the Melonheads is for them to have that extra element that makes them really scary. Like, I love goofy cryptids, but I also like cryptids that are powerful, that instill fear. Let's say there's a Souls-like game where you fight cryptids. I feel like the Melonheads would just be the fodder enemies instead of like a boss or something. Dude, you know what? Someone should make a cryptid Souls-like game and give me $1 million for the concept. I will be waiting, and you're welcome.
Number 11, the Tennessee Wild Man.
The Tennessee Wild Man is a wild man creature that was first sighted in 1871
in McNairy County, Tennessee. He was described as being 7 to 9 feet tall, incredibly strong, covered in dark or gray hair, and had glowing red eyes. The wild man also has a terrible odor of rotten flesh and decay, similar to the skunk ape or the Missouri monster. While usually being classified as a Bigfoot-like cryptid, the wild man has a lot more human features than any of his Bigfoot-like brethren. His eyes, mannerisms, and movements seem to evoke some sort of intelligence out of him. His scream, his war cry, is said to sound like a cross between a wild animal and a human scream. He also has apparently been observed using primitive tools like he just spawned in on Minecraft. The Tennessee Wildman is very aggressive and territorial. He ain't gonna sit by like those other cryptids when somebody invades his land. He's gonna give him the old Wildman 1-2. He reportedly also has a rivalry with Sasquatch like it's a WWE feud or something. Next thing you know, it's gonna be the Tennessee Wildman versus Sasquatch in Hell in a Cell. The Wildman is also apparently obsessed with dogs and women and seems to target them during confrontations. Descriptions of the wild man have also been very consistent throughout the many years of sightings of him, which lends to his validity. Let me tell you about a more recent encounter with him. In the late 1990s, a paranormal investigator, Rob Phillips, and his cousin Randy Sparks were hiking in the Watauga Cliffs one evening when they noticed that the forest suddenly went silent, followed by the snapping of twigs and a horrible, inhuman scream. The two men fled in different directions like it's an episode of Scooby-Doo. Phillips eventually hid behind a tree. It was then when he saw it, the Tennessee Wildman himself, clinging onto a tree about 15 feet away. His description of the creature checks out with all the other descriptions. A humanoid creature covered in hair with glowing red eyes and a terrible smell. The story ends there apparently, so we'll never know what happened to our paranormal investigator here. All I can say is, the Tennessee Wildman wasn't no ghost in that moment. So wrapping up the Tennessee Wildman, I can say there's definitely meat on these bones. He's not one of the most super well-known cryptids, but he's had quite a decent cultural impact on the area. There's apparently a convention in Tennessee called the Tennessee Wildman and Cryptid Con. I also like the human aspect of him. Again, it differentiates him from the rest of the Bigfoot likes. Overall, pretty good cryptid. Number 10, the Goat Man. So, legends of the Goat Man started to get really popular around the 1970s in an area known as Prince George's County in Maryland. So, the popular Goat Man origin story goes as follows. In the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center, one Dr. Stephen Fletcher was experimenting, trying to fuse human and animal DNA. He chose to use goat DNA. In his crazed endeavor to perform such a feat, he inadvertently turned himself into a hybrid creature, half man, half goat, now known as the Goat Man. So, the Goat Man is usually described as a bipedal, 6 feet tall humanoid creature with either a goat's head or a human's head with goat's horns. He also carries around an axe to chase you with. Some stories also say he is capable of shapeshifting and possesses superhuman strength. If you find yourself driving down the old country roads of Prince George's County, you better hope you don't run into the Goat Man, cause he'll jump on your car, smash your windshield, and if you're lucky, he won't abduct you. Basically, Goat Man became a boogeyman of the area. Parents would warn their teens that if they go out to party in the woods, the Goat Man will get you. Teens themselves would spread stories of the Goat Man to try to scare each other. There was a story of this boy who lost his baseball in the woods. He went to get it, and then a few minutes later, screaming could be heard. His mother came out running, and the boy said he saw the dark thing that stands in the corner of his room every night. Is this story true or not? No idea. Do I think it's funny? Hell yeah, I do. So yeah, during the 1970s, there were countless reports of the Goat Man in Maryland. Goat Man's reach eventually went countrywide. When he was featured in episodes of TV shows like The X-Files and Supernatural, he would have countless documentaries made of him. There was a haunted house in Maryland that would take you through the entire Goat Man origin story. There was a pretty popular creepypasta called A Nazi's Goat Man Story written about him in 2012. Goat Man's got arms, and that's the sign of a good cryptid. A cryptid that leaves a lasting impression. Number 9, the Jersey Devil. The Jersey Devil is a cryptid who has been reported in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey since basically the dawn of the nation. It looks like a horse-bat thingy hybrid, so like bat wings, horse-like head, and horse hooves. The earlier reports of the devil gave it more draconic attributes like breathing fire. The earliest report of the Jersey Devil was in 1735, where it was known as the Leeds Devil, named after Mother Leeds, who was a mistress of a British soldier. She was suspected of being a witch, and as the story goes, she cursed her 13th child, who became the Leeds Devil.
Napoleon Bonaparte's older brother, Joseph Bonaparte, also claimed to have seen the Jersey Devil around his estate in 1820. Once the 20th century hit, the Jersey Devil seemed to get real busy. Throughout the week of January 16th to 23rd, 1909, newspapers published hundreds of claimed encounters with the Jersey Devil in the South Jersey and Philadelphia area. The reports soon spread to Delaware and western Maryland. It got so big that schools in the area closed down and workers were told to stay home. Vigilantes and hunting parties scoured the forest and the wilderness in search of the devil. There was a $10,000 bounty on the creature from the Philadelphia Zoo. According to this extremely trustworthy site that I found on Google, $10,000 in 1909 is worth $346,000 today. Other than the 1909 craze, there have been a couple sightings in the next 50 years. In 1925, a man shot and killed an unidentified creature, which I presume he thought was the Jersey Devil, and photographed its corpse. He showed it to 100 people, and nobody could identify the creature. I unfortunately cannot find the picture that was taken, so I guess we'll have to just take his word for it. Woohoo, the Jersey Devil's dead, let's go! In 1937, an unknown animal with red eyes was seen by residents in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. A group of boys claimed to have seen the devil in 1951 in New Jersey, and a supposed corpse of the devil was found in 1957. And in 1960, a $10,000 bounty was made for the Jersey Devil's capture. I like the Jersey Devil. Just the idea of this weird looking goat, horse, bat thing flying around and wreaking havoc all over the place is super fun. It goes all the way back to the 1700s too, so that's cool as hell.
Number 8, Bigfoot.
I actually love Bigfoot. If you ever get a chance to meet him, he's actually a really funny dude. I don't think I need to go over anything on Bigfoot. He's literally the most popular cryptid. Any sort of media you can imagine has been made about him. That is legendary status.
Number 7, the Fresno Nightcrawlers.
So, the Fresno Nightcrawler is a small, white creature with 2 legs that resembles a pair of pants. It was first discovered in 2007 in Fresno County, California, and has been spotted 3 times since. Every piece of footage of these things has been taken with the most potato quality cameras ever, except the 4th most recent one in 2020, but all you can see is like a blurry figure that looks like an Among Us in the right corner. It's kind of funny actually. But yeah, I love the Fresno Nightcrawlers. They're such a goofy cryptid. I can't help but put them this high. As you can tell, I love goofy cryptids.
Number 6, Skinwalkers.
The Skinwalker is a Navajo witch or shaman that has a myriad of powers, including shapeshifting into an animal, voice mimicry, telepathy, stealing the face of another person, or even absorbing themselves into a person's body. In Navajo folklore, it is said that when a person breaks cultural taboo by engaging in witchcraft, they gain the power to become a skinwalker. Skinwalkers are seen as evil, the counterpart to a healer or medicine man in the Navajo culture. They actively seek to harm humans and practice evil and witchcraft. Skinwalkers are said to grow in power through fear. It is said that if a person locks eyes with one, that person will freeze in fear, which will make the skinwalker stronger. It is also considered taboo to say their name out loud, as it is seen as inviting them to you. It is said that one of the ways to kill a skinwalker is to pronounce his full name, that name being the name of the human before they turned into a skinwalker. Skinwalkers have become quite popular in all forms of modern media, and sightings of them happen quite often. Like, maybe a person will be driving down a lonely road at night and they see a coyote that's walking on its hind legs. You know, that type of thing. Skinwalkers are definitely a very frightening cryptid, maybe the scariest on this list. It's not just the fact that they're pure evil and they look scary. No, it's the fact that they're so powerful. Like, these things have some crazy powers, and it is not easy to kill or even get rid of them. That's what makes a good cryptid. A cryptid that makes you second guess. A cryptid that makes you think, if this is real, I definitely do not ever want to encounter it. A cryptid that is the last thing you want to think about before you go to bed at night. That is the Skinwalker.
Number 5, mountain creature caught running behind Google car.
So the mountain creature caught running behind Google car is this goofy little goober that was caught running behind a Google Street View car in British Columbia, Canada.
Shh, pretend Canada is part of America.
The mountain creature looks like some sort of bipedal reptilian creature. He has no arms and a lizard-like head with beady black eyes. Yeah, that's about it. There's not much else about this little gremlin. I think this thing is one of the funniest and goofiest cryptids out there, along with the Fresno Nightcrawlers. Like, I cannot help but laugh whenever I see this thing's goofy ass face. Also, it does technically have a name. I believe people call it Mock,
but I pretend that that name doesn't exist and that its official name is mountain creature caught running behind Google car. It's such a ridiculously long name and I love it. One of the top cryptids in my opinion for sure. Number 4, the Wendigo. So I'm sure if you clicked on this video, you've at least heard of the Wendigo. They're basically these evil spirits of Algonquin and other Native American folklore that can possess a human and make them feel an insatiable hunger for human flesh. The human possessed would turn into this emaciated, gaunt, zombie-like creature that would roam the woods, viciously attacking and consuming any human that would be unfortunate enough to encounter them. Now, I'm not sure if Wendigo refers to the spirit or the human possessed, or maybe they're both known as the Wendigo after possession. I know when the Wendigo is used in media or something today, it usually refers to the actual physical being. The Wendigo is seen as the embodiment of greed and gluttony, as no matter how many humans it consumes, its hunger is never satiated. Some Native Americans' tales say that humans that resort to cannibalism will eventually turn into a Wendigo, a curse befitting the magnitude of their actions. One of the most popular cases of a possible Wendigo spirit possession was in the 1800s, where a Native American man named Swift Runner apparently took his family out into the woods to hunt for food in the winter. When the spring hit, he returned to his village alone, saying that he was the only one to survive from starvation. The other people weren't buying this ruse, and noticed that he didn't look like he was starving. The authorities took him to the campsite in the woods, where he confessed that he killed and eaten his family. He claimed that a Wendigo spirit took over him, which caused him to do it. It wasn't me, officer. You see, it was the Wendigo. Why am I not possessed right now? Well, you see, I found the willpower in myself to eventually fight the evil spirit out of my mind, of course. Swift Runner was arrested, tried, and hanged for his crime. The Wendigo has become quite popular in modern media. For example, it has appeared in numerous video games like Until Dawn, Borderlands 3, and Fallout 76. The Wendigo in modern media is usually depicted as more animalistic with antlers on its head, which is contrary to the original Native American tales, in which they are more of an emaciated humanoid zombie. The Wendigo has always been one of my favorite cryptids. There's just something about it that evokes that primal fear. Like, these things were once human, but are now reduced to this wicked beast that wants nothing more than human flesh to attempt to satiate its insatiable hunger. Wendigos go hard, man. They really do. Number 3, the Minnesota Dogman. Let me start off by saying yes, the Minnesota Dogman is very similar to the Beast of Bray Road, and seeing as Wisconsin and Minnesota are literally right next to each other, they might even be the same cryptid, but I will treat the Minnesota Dogman as its own entity because I feel like it deserves it. I don't know, there's something about the Minnesota Dogman that feels unique, powerful, intriguing, or maybe I just like saying its name, the Minnesota Dogman. Anyway, the Minnesota Dogman actually has 3 reports, and they're each kind of long. I'll read through them ahead of time and read you the one that I find the most interesting. Alright, so this report is from an anonymous source that claims to have seen the Minnesota Dogman in 1999 one night while on patrol in an Air Force base in St. Louis County. The following is an email he sent to a Dogman encounter site. First off, I would like to keep my name confidential, just for the fact that this happened on an Air Force base, and I don't know who reads this stuff. This happened sometime in September of '99. I forget the exact date. It was early in the month though. It was between 2 and 3 a.m. I was a security forces airman working 3rd shift on base patrol. Now mind you, this is an Air National Guard base that I worked at full time. It's on the north side of Duluth, Minnesota. Next to the International Airport, north to northeast, is nothing but large wooded areas, forest areas. 3rd shift on the base was pretty boring. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and us full-timers worked a skeleton crew, usually only 5 to 6 of us on 3rd shift. I was in the patrol truck doing my usual rounds, checking doors and fence lines. Late at night on the north side of the base was usually creepy enough when patrolling by yourself. Anyways, I was on this road, driving towards our baseball field, when my lights caught a pair of eyes reflecting back at me. They were almost eye level to me, and I was sitting in an F-150. Around this time, a few of the guys had been seeing a huge buck around the property, like a 16-pointer or something around that size. I was about 80 yards or so when I saw these eyes reflecting back at me. So I'm thinking it was a big deer. I gotta see this thing. So I hit the gas and started speeding towards the field. This is where it all happened so fast, it's almost hard to explain. There was a little slope behind the baseball field. It sloped down probably about 12 to 15 feet into a brush line. The brush went about 30 feet, then turned to a thick tree line. The brush was probably armpit height to me and pretty tough to traverse through, being so thick. As I turned into the baseball field and turned the truck towards the thing, I just caught the rear end of the thing leaping down the slope, below the line of sight of my headlights. The thing was no more than 20 feet ahead of me when it leaped. All I got to look at was the back end of the thing, and it was big. The best I can do to describe it is to say it was a wolf/dog-like in nature. It had a long tail, longer than 2 feet. The hind legs looked exactly like those of a dog, same with the back paws, but the paws were huge. They were bigger than my hands for sure. The hair/fur was wavy yet matted and thick. The color was blondish or very light brown. I didn't notice any gray in it, but this all happened within a span of 2 to 3 seconds. I sat in my patrol truck for a couple seconds, confused and thinking, I know what I saw, but it couldn't have been what I saw. So I hopped out with my flashlight and M16 rifle and walked to the edge of the slope. All I heard was the thing running through the woods in front of me, heading in the northwest direction. And this thing sounded like a moose charging through the trees. It made a lot of noise. That's when I started to get real scared, thinking, if this is some sort of wolf or whatever it could be, my M16 isn't going to do a thing to this animal. So I jumped back into my patrol truck as fast as I could and headed back to the SF headquarters. Now, I never told any of the other members about this for fear of ridicule or being called crazy. There's no way I misidentified this thing. I'm a trained reserver, an avid hunter, and have worked in animal rehabilitation with the MNDNR in the past. I know my animals and the North Woods extremely well. I saw exactly what I saw, and that was the back end of a large wolf/dog thing that basically had its eyes level with mine while I was in a patrol truck. The back end was definitely much larger than any of the largest deer or black bears I've seen. The points I remember the clearest were the tail and the back paws, as well as the texture and color of the hair/fur. This is my story. I have never told it to anyone for fear of ridicule. I swear it to be the truth. Anonymous. Early September of 1999, 2:30 a.m. I mean, what a story. Give this man a round of applause. Whoever you are, I believe you. Also, can we talk about the Giga Chad energy? He saw the Minnesota Dogman, and instead of running, he pulled out the M16, ready to blast this thing to oblivion. Granted, when the realization hit that he was up against a creature of such a caliber as the Minnesota Dogman, he erred on the side of wisdom and decided to leave. But that's just knowing when to quit, you know? At least he had the courage to pull out the M16 in the first place. Anyway, I'm getting off track. I absolutely love the Minnesota Dogman. I want to get a framed picture of the Minnesota Dogman and hang it up on my wall.
Number 2, the Loveland Frogman.
So the first sighting of the Loveland Frogman is actually the Loveland Frogmen, because there were multiple of them. In May of 1955, on the outskirts of a small town known as Loveland, Ohio, a man named Robert Honeycutt was driving down the road at 3:30 a.m. when he saw 3 bipedal quasi-reptilian entities congregating on the side of the road. He pulled his car over to observe these entities for about 3 minutes. He said that these strange creatures stood about 3 to 4 foot tall, had gray leathery skin, and had webbed hands and feet. The moon must have been shining real bright, or you must have had your headlights shining straight on them for you to be able to make those details out at 3:30 a.m. Their most distinguishing characteristic, however, were their frog-like heads, which had deep wrinkles where their hair would have been. This was a sketch of the encounter. Look, I know drawing is hard as much as anyone would, but those ain't frogmen, my dude. You just saw a bunch of meth heads. Just as he was about to leave, one of the creatures held a wand above his head, at which point sparks began to fly off the wand. Robert left immediately. Thus begins the bizarre legend of the Loveland Frogman. This tale would be fascinating enough if it ended there, but the 2 most significant encounters in this case, and indeed 2 of the most significant encounters in the annals of cryptozoology, were yet to come. I'm sorry, I'm reading verbatim from this website and I felt like I had to do the dumb voice. Let's move on to the second encounter. On March 3rd, 1972, at around 1 a.m., an anonymous police officer... What is he, afraid the Loveland Frogman is going to sue him or something? An anonymous police officer was driving along Riverside Road towards Loveland when he saw something that would forever change his life. I'm sorry. When he saw something that would forever change his life. The officer was driving slowly because of the ice on the road, when he saw what looked like a dog on the curb. The animal suddenly darted in front of the car, forcing the officer to slam on the brakes to avoid a collision with this creature. Once the car came to a halt, the headlights would reveal this strange entity. In the span of 2 seconds, the creature stood up on 2 legs, stared at the policeman, then scrambled over the guardrail, scurried down the embankment, then disappeared into the Ohio River. This creature must be fast as hell to do all that in 2 seconds. This is an artist's sketch based on the encounter, which I think is one of the funniest cryptid photos of all time. He's just chilling, leaning on the guardrail, about to smoke a cig. He then notices you walking up to him. He's like, "Hey, what brings you to Puerto?" This picture is truly a work of art. The officer described the creature to be 3 to 4 feet tall, had leathery skin, and that the creature resembled a frog or lizard. So it basically matches the description that Robert gave in 1955. The second encounter of 1972 happened 2 weeks later when another police officer, Mark Matthews, had an encounter of his own. See, Officer Mark Matthews isn't afraid to get sued by the Loveland Frogman. Matthews was driving into Loveland when he spotted what he believed to be an injured animal lying on the pavement. Matthews exited his cruiser with the intention of removing the creature from the road when it suddenly lurched up into a crouched position. Surprised by the creature's reptilian visage, Matthews takes out his revolver and shoots at the creature. The creature then proceeds to hobble over the side of the road and step over the guardrail, all while watching the officer. Dude, I love the Loveland Frogman. That is pure Giga Chad energy. He gets shot at and then proceeds to slow walk over to the guardrail, all while keeping eye contact with the officer to assert dominance. Honestly, top tier cryptid. Matthews would later go on to say that he didn't actually encounter the Loveland Frogman, and it was actually just a really big lizard that he shot at for some reason. Like, come on, you saw the Loveland Frogman himself in the flesh, and now you're trying to take it back? Preposterous. Other than the 1955 and the 2 1972 sightings, there was also a sighting in 2016 of all years. This was the image that was taken. Yeah, the guy that took this picture was playing Pokemon Go. He probably thought he was catching a Polytoad or something. But yeah, Loveland Frogman. I love the Loveland Frogman. It's the perfect cryptid in my eyes. Had 3 distinct legendary encounters. Every picture or sketch of this thing is hilarious, and it's got the biggest Chad behavior out of any cryptid.
Number 1, Mothman.
So here we are, the legendary Mothman. One of the most legendary cryptids in America, and maybe the entire world. Mothman is described as a 7-foot tall, winged, bipedal humanoid creature that resembles a humanoid owl. His fur is usually a dark tone. The specific details of the structure of his body are varied across all accounts, but every report and rendition of him depicts him with 2 glowing red eyes. One of the first sightings of the Mothman was in Point Pleasant, West Virginia in 1966 in an area called the West Virginia Ordnance Works, also known as the TNT area. The TNT area was home to numerous facilities that produced ammunition and dynamite back in World War II. Now abandoned, the TNT area has been labeled as an environmental disaster as chemicals have been left to pollute the land. On November 15, 1966, 2 young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mallette, were driving in a car through the TNT area around midnight when Linda noticed 2 glowing red eyes in the distance beside an old power plant. The 4 realized that the eyes belonged to some sort of large, winged humanoid creature. After taking some time to observe this creature, it spread its wings and began chasing them down the highway at speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour. They got back to town and had a little discussion about what they saw and decided the best course of action was to go back. So they headed back towards the TNT area and, lo and behold, once again, they found the Mothman. This time, as soon as the car's headlights hit the creature, it instantly ascended into the air at a tremendous speed and disappeared above the trees. The 4 then returned to the city once again and gave their story to the sheriffs at the courthouse. The next day, the media began running the papers about the encounter. This marked the beginning of the Mothman sightings that would continue into the next year, with possible Mothman sightings happening throughout the entire world. Mothman is seen as a harbinger of doom of sorts. Many take it to believe that the Mothman or his sightings would cause a disaster or something bad to happen soon. The best example of this is the 1967 collapse of the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant itself, which was linked to the Mothman and his sightings around the area. Some take the glass half full approach, however, and see the Mothman as a benevolent being. Instead of being the cause of these disasters, he is warning us of them. I like to believe that if the Mothman is real, that this is the version of him that is real. Like, he's a protector. He'd be like one of the friendly NPCs in that Cryptid Souls-like game. Anyway, moving on to today, the Mothman has basically stimulated the economy of the entire town of Point Pleasant. They hold a festival there every year in September called the Mothman Festival, which attracts around 10 to 15,000 attendants. That is crazy numbers to be pulling for a Cryptid festival. They've even erected a 12-foot tall metal statue of the Mothman in town, and they kinda gave him that gyat. But yeah, Mothman is definitely deserving of this spot. He is basically the perfect cryptid. He's got the intrigue, the fear factor, he's powerful, he looks cool, and he is funding an entire town on the basis of existing. I mean, if that is not a top tier cryptid, I don't know what is.
And that is it for the entire cryptid ranking. If you made it this far, you are a legend and I absolutely appreciate it. I've been working on this video for a very long time and I've put a lot of work into it, so I hope you appreciate it as much as I appreciate you watching it. Cryptids have always been something I've found interesting, and I'm glad to have had the chance to make such a long video telling you all about them. I'm definitely down to do some more cryptid videos in the future, so let me know if you want them as well. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share this video to anyone you think be interested. I would greatly appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.